All right. So as we know, the combine wrapped up in Indianapolis just last Sunday, and there's a lot of talk about the combine this year. Two players got hurt. Dan Campbell mentioning that he views people in pads. He doesn't care what they do in pajamas. So the question really is it worth it? What does it mean? Does the NFL still need to have a combine?
Um, yes, but not in this format. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because I think going through drills, going through these tests, I don't think really tell you anything about the player. I think the purpose of the combine is to confirm what you already know by watching their film. We've watched these players play, some of them for multiple seasons, some of them just for a couple. We've seen what they've put on the field. We've seen them in crunch time. We've seen them, actually play football. And that's all I need whenever I'm looking at these players. I don't care how high you jump. I don't care your 3-cone drill. I don't care the gauntlet. That stuff I don't really care about because I've seen what you've done on the football field. I've watched you every Saturday. I know you can play. And same thing with Dan Campbell. Like you're in shirts in you're in a t-shirt, you're in shorts, you're not in full pads. It's not the same. I think the combine itself is important because it gives these teams or these players a chance to meet with these teams, do these interviews. They can really have this one-on-one time so they can kind of get to know the prospects a little bit better, kind of who they are as a person instead of just a player. I think that's important. And I think it's important to kind of go through drills, learn from these NFL coaches. I mean, they're NFL coaches. They're at the combine that are going through drills. I think it's important to go through those drills, learn better technique, get better, take every chance opportunity you have to learn. And I think that's what the combine should move forward to, other than these tests, because these tests, do they even matter? Why does a lineman need to run the 40? When are they going to be blazing down the field? Why does a quarterback need to jump high, do the vertical? Why do I care what your vertical is as a quarterback? That doesn't apply to the actual game at all. And it's just nonsense.
Yeah, I tend to agree to a point. I think the combine is a little overrated. The NFL coming into the draft was trying to get some hype, and they put it on TV. At one point in time, it was nationally broadcasted. Then people realized what good does it do? Really, what hurt the combine is when John Ross, blew up the combine and then just decided to be the worst wide receiver we've ever seen. But I think there is some value in it. I think the combine, instead of looking at the combine and seeing how good football players, the combine tells us how good athletes they are. It doesn't equivocate to how well they can catch, how well they can throw, anything like that. But it tells us that, hey, if this guy's not a good athlete, he's probably not a good football player. But it's not vice versa. You could be a good athlete and not a good football player. So I think that's where the combine is really important at, is when you're determining, all these drills kind of determine your athletic genes,
I mean, you're right. I mean, it's one of those things where, take Anthony Richardson. I mean, all of a sudden now there's hype where he's going to be the number one pick in the draft now because of his combine. But it's like, you're just choosing to forget his past season where he completed 50% of his passes. Like, the athleticism is there, the talent is there. Like, that's, no one's denying that. But all of a sudden he's going to jump proven quarterbacks like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young just because he broke all the records for a quarterback in the combine. I'm not buying it. I need to see what you put out on film. What were you like against good defenses? What were you like against bad defenses? What was it like in the fourth quarter when you were down? On defense, what was it like on fourth quarter? You needed to get a defensive stop to win the game. Those big, impactful moments in pads during real game time, that's what I need to see. I don't need to see that stuff in the combine.
Yeah, I agree. The combine shouldn't be a place where you decide who you're going to pick based off of nothing, right? You should have a guy and you said, hey, I want to see, the combine. I want to see how he interacts. I think the more important part of the combine is actually the interviews, the stuff they do outside the field that we don't get the privilege to see. And another aspect of the combine is it kind of puts some of the big names onto the fans' perspective, right? There's not a lot of fans like you and me that will go back and watch tape and tape and tape. So some of these names they see, like Anthony Richardson throwing at the draft. Now he's a household name, right? That's going to build a hype for the draft. So that's good for the NFL. But other than that,
So don't even get me started on the throwing portion of quarterbacks. That is the single most pointless thing I've ever seen in my life. You mean to tell me that with no defense, there's no pressure, there's none of that, they just drop back and throw, that they're not going to be able to hit 9 out of 10 throws? And like it's scripted, and it's just you go out and throw like good on you. Like no, this, I don't mean this as a shot at the players. They went out and did what they're supposed to do. Okay,
Yeah.
They went out and they did what they're supposed to do. Fantastic, that's good. But it's just like when they sit back and throw, and it's like, ooh, it's like congratulations, you can throw a ball. That's your job as a quarterback, is throwing a ball. So I would be worried. I would be worried if you could not throw the ball like that and still be in the combine. Like that would concern me. But I saw plenty of quarterbacks do the same thing. I saw Aiden O'Connell from Purdue do the same thing as Anthony Richardson throwing the ball. I saw the quarterback out of Houston, Tune, do the same thing. I saw even Stetson Bennett was throwing the rock pretty well. And I'm not even the biggest fan of his. So to me, when it's just the NFL I think is intentionally hyping certain players, like you said, because it is about views. It is about how many people are watching, how many people are going to tune in. So they do have to hype it out. And to me, it just drives me bonkers, because they just forget about the actual football season when these people were actually playing, to run around in shorts and a t-shirt and chuck a ball without any real opposition.
Yeah. The throwing portion is kind of crazy. I do like to see, when they just hold the ball for 30 seconds and let the wide receiver get down there and just sail it, 60, 70 yards like Will Levis and CJ Stroud did. That's fun to watch, but it doesn't mean anything. You're never going to have, 10 seconds in the pocket in the NFL. But going off of that, there is some people that rise and fall based on the expectations from the combine. Not really how good of a player they're going to be, but, the risers and fallers are based off of kind of how you expected them to do at the combine, and if they hit that or if they miss that. So I'll throw it back to you, Garrett, and let you talk about some of your risers first, and then we'll go back and forth on them.
Yeah, so I'll talk about risers. I do want to mention one more thing about the combine, and that's I actually think the Senior Bowl is actually more beneficial than the combine is, because they're actually in pads throughout that whole process. They're practicing in pads, they're playing in pads, they're working out in pads, they're doing drills in pads. A lot of the same stuff they're doing in the combine, a lot more physical and in pads. I know a lot of scouts and GMs will actually look at the combine and then go watch those players in the Senior Bowl to see how it actually translates with pads. So I think that the Senior Bowl is a lot more beneficial. Obviously, you can't have everybody in the combine go to the Senior Bowl, because that would just be too much. But that's a lot more beneficial to my mind than the combine.
I agree. And this year, I think I heard that there was 4 teams that didn't even send their coaches to the combine, Packers being included in that, when all of them was at the Senior Bowl. And how big of a mess up did Stetson Bennett make, opting out of that Senior Bowl, and then woof.
Yeah, and then this whole arrest. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of tough decisions that these players have to make when they're outside of college, and some of them don't choose right. But let's go ahead and get to the winners. So my first winner, the guy I like the most, is Darnell Washington.
Okay.
So, I mean, his measurements came in. This dude is just a monster. 6'7", 264. The way that he can move, the way that he can get up in the air and catch the ball. Obviously, he had that, probably like the biggest catch of the combine, that crazy catch, even though technically it wouldn't have counted on a Sunday. But he was still able to got up and showed his athleticism, saying, I'm able to make these types of plays. So that was fantastic. But what really stuck out to me was him on the sled. So I don't know if you saw that video of him on the sled comparing him to other tight ends. And he moved that thing like it was nothing. And then all these other tight ends are struggling to move the sled. He just picked it up and just scooted it over like it was nothing. And so to me, that said, I'm thinking, man, you're getting a guy, you're getting a beast, you're getting somebody that is the tight end position is a lot more of a receiver position nowadays than it is blocking. But with him, he proved that he's somebody that can catch the ball. He's athletic enough to catch the ball, but even a bigger monster on the line. So you can line up in 12 personnel and really go at their throats with these multiple tight end looks, because you have somebody that can block well and you have somebody that can catch well. And I think, unfortunately for him, so this comment was important for him because, unfortunately, he wasn't even the best tight end on his team. Brock Bowers is by far a better tight end, so he was overshadowed a lot by that. And so this was a very important day for him to have in the combine, and I think he took full advantage of his opportunity.
Yeah. I had Darnell Washington as one of my winners, but yeah, he was just dominating. And the NFL is kind of starting to move back to that traditional tight end. A lot of people run that Shanahan offense, which uses the monster that is George Kittle to be their number one blocker in the run game. So he's going to get probably early second round hype going into the draft. And it's funny that you mentioned a tight end because that's one of my winners too, is the boy from Iowa City, Sam Laporta. Man, that guy's a monster. Tight end U. Yes, that guy's a monster. He had a great season in one of the worst offenses I've ever seen live. Such a shame. I cried every time I walked out of the building. But man, also this is what I'm talking about is Iowa's offense didn't get a chance to showcase how athletic this guy actually is. And he tested almost identical to George Kittle. And apparently he grew an inch too. He was listed at 6'2", gets measured at the combine at 6'3.5". Like, huge growth spurt before the draft. This guy is going to be a beast in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty sure the defense scored more points than the offense did this year. So very, very tough to put on good tape and good film whenever you're an offense like that. So yeah, so I agree. And so I mean, this tight end class is very, very deep. It'll be interesting to see where that run starts to go, who kind of gets picked up over the top. So very curious to see. But let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Another one of my combine risers was Nolan Smith. Now, for me, it wasn't just about his 40 time. I know when he came out with that 40 time, that was probably when a lot of heads kind of chirped and was like, oh man, Nolan Smith, this dude he can run. This dude is athletic. And for me, I was like, okay, that's cool. You can run fast. But for me, what I helped the most about was, so this was something that he had to do because he was injured during the season. So he wasn't able to finish off the season. So another super important time for him because not a lot of tape on him, right? And so testing well is very good on for him. But what stuck out to me the most was him in his interviews. So in his interviews with the media of how emotional he got when talking about that situation that happened with the team, with that player that was injured in the car wreck, how emotional he got. I think that goes a long way for me as looking at a teammate in the locker room, like what kind of guy you are and who I want to associate myself with. The fact that you have that bond with your teammates, you care that much about your teammates. And then also, you saw the video of his teammates who were at the Georgia facility watching him live run the combine, and they were freaking out and so excited. That's somebody that I want on my team. Somebody that is able to have those relationships with his teammates where they become like a family. And so for me, you know, his combine measurements and testing was great. But having those interviews and seeing those interactions with his teammates and stuff like that, to me, that stood out more about a guy that, man, I would like to play with that guy.
Yeah. Nolan Smith, you know, I thought the combine would be huge for him. One, because he didn't have that season to finish off, and he wasn't really a necessarily starter when he did start. He had to wait a while to get that opportunity as the number one recruit coming out of high school. Something that's a little, that he also did well is he came in small. Nolan Smith, 238. That's going to be the smallest outside linebacker edge that the NFL's ever seen. So he had to test off the charts to do that. So that's it's good. I'm happy for him. I think he probably gets first round views now. I've seen a mock take him as early as 8th to the Falcons. So who knows with that kid, but, we'll stay on the defensive side and stay in Iowa City for my highest draft riser is Jack Campbell. This guy, as you watch on the tape, his name's cheered throughout the Kinnick Stadium. His name's always on the loudspeaker. Captain Jack. They got shirts around Iowa City. I think his jersey was the one that you've seen the most, believe it or not. Instead of the quarterback. But but we just thought this guy'd be a slow kind of tackling linebacker, kind of like the starting middle linebacker for the Broncos, Josie Jewell. And this guy comes out, he shows that, his 3 drills shows he's agile, can change a direction, could potentially cover sideline to sideline. So it's good to see that this guy could actually be a starting 3-down middle linebacker in the NFL.
Jack Campbell, I really like Jack Campbell. I mean, if I'm being honest, I love all of Iowa's defense. It's honestly hard to go wrong there.
Yes.
If I'm being honest, that defense carried them all year, so it's no surprise that they're going to have NFL caliber players.
Yeah.
Going back in the trenches to the offensive side of the ball, someone that I've been high on for a while now that I think everyone else is now going to be high on because of the combine. I'm going to go with Blake Freeland, the tackle out of BYU. The dude's a monster. He's 6'7". The dude's a walking skyscraper. But he's like slim too. Like, if you can believe it, he's not like one of those filled out guys. So I think that was one of those things that was he was kind of dinged on, was just because, yes, he's big, tall wise, but not big wise, width wise. And so that was something when you're looking for a bookend left tackle, somebody to kind of be there, you're looking for someone kind of a bit bigger. So I think him being able to test that way, show how athletic he is, that he's be able to move quickly like that, is super important for a tackle, and I think super important for him. And when you get into an NFL team, you're going to have nutritionists, you're going to have an NFL weight room, you're going to have a lot of stuff to help you really bulk up and kind of build out your frame and be better at that position that wise. And so I think that's going to be something that's going to benefit him. I don't see him as coming in and starting right away. I think he'll be a quality backup for about 2 to 3 years until he can really bulk up and really fill out completely. And once he does that, then I think he's going to be a monster left tackle for whoever the team is that drafts him.
Yeah, Freeman, sorry. He had an amazing combine. First combine score out of athletes for the offensive line, 88 overall athlete score, just monster combine. But I'm going to go to the guy that we've already talked about in our intro to the combine. I'm going to go my QB1, Anthony Richardson. And let me break this down for you, Garrett, because I think the combine kind of changed the narrative. I think the narrative was this guy was Josh Allen kind of coming out, right, needing that year, kind of Pat Mahomes-like, right, turnover. But I don't think after watching the combine, and it's not just about his vertical or his 40 time, right, he's a fast guy. I think that we're looking at the new version of Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields can come in and he doesn't have the arm right now, but he can come in and he can win you games based off of what he can do outside the pocket, based off of his athleticism as a whole. I think that's what you're getting in Anthony Richardson. I'd say that I would start him day one and just let him figure out his arm as you make plays on the ground. I think you pair him up with someone like Derrick Henry in Tennessee, and I think they win that division. And I'm high on the Jaguars right now, but man, Anthony Richardson, I think potentially could be the only guy in this draft class that in 3 to 4 years is challenging that throne for QB2, because Mahomes has it for now, for the foreseeable future. But I think QB2 in 2 or 3 years, Anthony Richardson.
This is why I hate the combine. This is why I hate the combine, because you can just forget everything you've seen. And then all of a sudden, dude can run, dude can jump, and he's going to be the QB1. Now, I can understand the physical aspect about it. When he plays well, he plays phenomenal. There's no doubt about it. But if you're looking at really drafting your quarterback of the future, I think it would be a mistake to take him over Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Now, if they're already off the board, and if you want to go for Richardson, you're taking a gamble. All draft picks, honestly, they're a gamble, right? You never know if they're 100% going to play out or not, so you're taking a gamble. We call it, teams will reach sometimes because they'll take somebody before, and somebody's going to go up and reach for him. Yes. But I don't see anybody making a trade to go up and to pick 1 or 2 to draft him as QB1 overall.
I agree. And I think one thing is watching him on tape, right? He's got accuracy problems. He went I think he had a great game against Utah week 1, looked like he could run away with the Heisman, then went 3 weeks without throwing a touchdown, right? Had a true accuracy score of 20 something against the weak Kentucky defense. And, but if you look at it, it's all just his feet, man. If he can get those set, it's nothing readment wise. He's not making the bad reads like Zach Wilson. He's not doing crossbodies throw. He just got to get his feet set. He's too mobile, right? He's got that Justin Fields problem. And for now, we've seen that pretty much work out. Lamar won an MVP. Justin Fields looked like he's going to be a stud. Josh Allen kind of figured that out going into the NFL. So the more the Shanahan offense, the college offense kind of plays in the NFL, the more I like Richardson in the future.
Yeah, his coaching is going to be very important. So,
I agree.
Coaching for sure. My last winner or kind of riser that I have actually is the other quarterback in the draft is CJ Stroud. And just for the fact is just because he just did everything perfect, which is what you expect. When you have CJ Stroud, potential QB1, if not QB2 in the draft coming out. The throwing portion was just phenomenal. He was just crisp, on time with everything, just super, super, super accurate. Like there was not even one bad pass that I saw that he made. It was just crisp, clean, powerful, just a perfect showing in all aspects. And so, that's all you can do, right? So it's just show up and show out when you have the opportunity, and that's what he did.
Yeah. The worst thing he did this combine is compare himself to Michael Vick and Deshaun Watson, right? Everything else, it was perfect. He just yes. He just needs to talk to his agent and maybe watch First Take one time. No, I'm kidding. But my combine riser, who actually just kind of blown me away, I didn't even have him in contention for a spot, is Deonte Banks from Maryland, the cornerback. That dude can fly. That dude can cover. That I went back and kind of looked and see. He just kind of went under the radar, playing for a very high offense, kind of high Austin, want to be air raid offense, not really a defensive school. I'm really high on Deonte Banks after the combine. He scored a 98th athlete score, which was first among DBs. Just this guy could be a late steal in this draft.
Let's go. Maybe the Eagles get him there at that late round selection. They're going to lose a lot of people in free agency, it looks like, coming up. So going to have to replenish that secondary. What you got? You got some losers for me?
Yeah. I've got probably the biggest loser of the whole combine is a Kayshon Boutte out of LSU. That guy came into the combine saying that he was wide receiver 1. He's been talking that for 2 years now since he's had that wide receiver 1 job at LSU. And he came in and he scored almost the worst wide receiver combine I've ever seen. He had a overall RAS score of 4, which is really bad when the average is 7. This guy can't run. He doesn't have a route tree. His vertical for being a big time play wide receiver was awful. Just not a good outing for Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, that was. It's weird though because he has good film. Like when you look at his tape, not so much this past year, but the year before. I mean, there's good tape out there on him. So it was weird that he kind of came in and tested like that for sure.
Yeah.
My biggest loser, and it's not because he did anything wrong. It's just the fact that he's not going to be able to play for a year, and that's Andrew Voorhees. You want to talk about losing? He's losing draft position. He's losing millions of dollars, and it's just he's losing a whole season of his NFL career, his whole rookie season. He's going to have to sit out because he tore his ACL in the freaking combine of all places. As you kind of mentioned in the opening, it's just one of those fluke things. To me, it's so crazy how these people are some of the highest, competitive athletes ever. And even they can just doing silly drills and all of a sudden something breaks or something snaps. To me, it's wild how that happens. I would expect that from somebody like me who hasn't done anything like that in forever. If I go out there, I'd probably break everything. But these guys that do it day in, day out, they train, they're strong, they're fit, and just something like that, it snaps. It's just, it sucks, honestly. He was looking at a top 50 pick, one of the top, offensive linemen here in the draft, and now he's still going to be drafted. Somebody's going to take a chance. And I think about kind of the Eagles last year with Nakobe Dean got hurt on his pro day. He was kind of talked about as a day one guy, a top 32 draft pick on that Georgia defense, and he got hurt, and so he fell to the 3rd round. And the Eagles, Eagles gamble. They say, hey, this guy's finally fallen to us. We're going to take a pick on him. We're going to wait till he can recover, and hopefully he can contribute. So same thing is going to happen with Voorhees, where some team is going to, draft him maybe sometime in the third round, fourth round, something like that, because of the upside that he's going to have in the future. But it's just a tough situation for him. Kudos for him for going back and finishing, putting up that bench press. Had the most of that combine there. Super impressive. Crazy. So kudos for him. I think it shows a lot of grit. I'm glad that he did that. And it's just, I'm bummed for him, man. That sucks.
Yeah. That was one of my losers too. He's 25 years old. He's going to turn 26 before the NFL season happens. And now he's going to be out until he's not going to have an NFL play under his belt till he's almost 27 years old. That's rough. But the Ravens took David Ojabo in the second round last year, I think, and he tore his ACL in the pro day even, so even later in the season. So there's some team out there that will take him, and even just take him because he came back and put up those 38 reps. This guy wants to play. A lot of teams like that. Yeah, I think that's all I had. My last faller was Noah Sewell. That guy was projected. I just looked at yesterday at a way too early mock draft from last year before the college season. He was a top 5 pick. His name was everywhere. Playing for Oregon. Oregon had just produced Kevin Thibodeau and Penei Sewell, his brother. They were coming out, and then he went out and had an awful tape and even worse combine. Just looks like he might not even be a top 4 linebacker off the board.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's tough when you come in with a lot of hype and you're not able to kind of live up to it. I think it's tougher that way. Like if you just kind of came in and just kind of had a combine, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. But when you come in hyped and then have a combine, it hurts you a lot more, obviously, than normal. But my last loser, it was just Will Levis. And the reason why is because all he talked about was how hard he could throw the football. That was it. Every time he opened his mouth, I have a cannon of arm. I could throw the ball 50, 100 yards. Like just every time he opened his mouth, all he had to say was talk about how strong his arm was. It just annoyed the crap out of me. Like I get it. You can throw the ball. That's fantastic. That's also one of the reasons why you're not very good is because that's all you can do. And you have to do a lot more than that if you want to be a successful quarterback. And so for me, like every opportunity he had to say something different, say what else he can do, he just never took that opportunity, and it was just, I have a cannon.
Yeah, and that's the only throws he really threw at the combine, too. All of his throws, he wanted the wide receivers to go deep and just show off his arm. He didn't put any touch, any velocity on him. It was just, look at how hard this ball is, right? And he didn't even have one of the hardest throws. They measure the speed. DTR from UCLA and Anthony Richards both beat him in that. So he doesn't even have the biggest arm of the draft. So, yeah, not a very good round for him, and not a very good combine for Deuce Vaughn, the running back from K-State, measured in at 5'5". Like, that's just brutal, man. I don't think there's an NFL player that's 5'5" in the league right now.
I mean, it's tough when you're that small. When you look at people like Darren Sproles, that's kind of who he's been compared to, obviously because he went to the same university. So it's that kind of connection is there. I like watching him throughout the season. I think there's definitely potential there. But just being that small, just playing in the league, it's just, you wonder how long that he's going to be able to keep that up. But I like the guy, a great player. I'm definitely rooting for him.
Yeah, absolutely.